I'm Caleb, a lawyer who has spent 20 years of my life seeking the truth in numbers and legal terms. For 12 years, when I biggest death, and I greatest upon my biggest career myself.
Since my wife Elena passed away 3 years ago, I have lived in seclusion and silence with my daughter Sophie. There are secrets that are only time I found salvation from my enemy.
The man I spent 12 years trying to destroy left me a locked iron box. Inside it, not what I expected, not even close. The doorbell rang at 9:14 on a Tuesday night in November. I know the exact time, because I note everything. Time, date, potential significance. I did not get up immediately. Sophie did. She was 7 years old, and she was already at the front door. By the time I reached the hallway, I heard her say, "You're completely wet, come inside." Not a question, a statement of fact, followed by an instruction. I am still not sure where she learned that. The woman standing in my doorway, it had rain in her hair, and a locked iron box under her arm. I recognized her name, before I recognized her face, because her name had appeared in my case files 47 times, over the course of 12 years. Julian Mercer, wife of Julian Mercer, the man I had spent the better part of my career trying to dismantle in a courtroom, who had, 3 weeks earlier, died in a car accident on the interstate. I had read the news report twice. He had felt nothing in particular. I want to be honest about that. She handed me the box without explanation. A sealed envelope was taped to the lid, my name in Julian's handwriting. His letters always had the same quality, but it's easy, unhurried, slightly too formal for the context, like a man who had decided, early in his life, that his words were worth the effort of getting right. The index card inside said, "Caleb, Maya's house is being seized. She has nowhere to go tonight. The box is for you. Open it alone." It was not what I expected. No legal documents, no financial records, no case files, letters, 12 of them, one for each year. Handwritten drafts on yellow legal paper, none of them ever sent. I read the first one standing up. By the fourth, I had sat down. By the eighth, I was not sure what I was feeling, which is a condition I had not experienced in a very long time. The letters were addressed to me, not to opposing counsel, not to a colleague, to me, by first name. In a register I had never heard from Julian Mercer. In any courtroom, any deposition, any correspondence, he wrote about watching me work, about a cross-examination in 2019 that he said he had studied for 3 weeks afterward, not to find weaknesses, but because he found it. His word, beautiful. The last letter was different, shorter, the handwriting less careful, like it had been written quickly, or at a time when precision was less important than getting it down. It said, "I don't have much time to explain this properly. Maya needs someone who knows how to fight for what matters and doesn't stop when it gets complicated. You are the only bastard good enough to do this." I am sorry I never said that out loud. I sat in my office for 4 minutes. I know, because I checked my watch twice. Then I walked back into the living room. Maya was still there. Sophie had brought her tea, in the good cups I had asked her not to take down without permission. I did not say anything about the cups. I looked at the two of them, in the lamplight of my living room, a room that had been very quiet for a very long time, and I said, "I'll take the case." I did not explain why. I was not entirely sure I could have. Comment. Has anyone ever left you something that changed how you understood them, only after they were gone? Because what happened next, I was not prepared for. The first week, we worked like opposing counsel, which, technically, we still were. I asked questions, the way I asked them in depositions, direct, sequential, no room for ambiguity. Maya answered them the same way, without hedging, without softening, without the particular social performance that people usually add when they are uncomfortable. I noticed that. I did not say anything about it. The second filing came on a Thursday morning. A motion from opposing counsel, attaching 3 pages of internal financial records, transactions that, read in a certain light, suggested the mortgage default was not accidental, that Julian had been aware the company was insolvent and had taken on debt he knew he could not repay. I read the filing once at my desk, then I read it again on the way to the window. The information was precise, the kind of precise that only comes from someone who was inside the situation, someone who had been there. I called Maya in that afternoon. She sat across from my desk. I put the filing between us. She looked at it for a long time, without touching it. Then she said, "Where did they get this?" I told her my theory. The records were formatted, the way Julian formatted things. Documents you keep for yourself, not for opposing counsel, the kind that end up in the wrong hands when someone is no longer there to control where their papers go. Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "He didn't know they would use it this way. No de question, not a defense, just a fact." I looked at her. I believed her. That surprised me. We worked until 9 that night. Maya stayed without being asked. At some point Sophie appeared in the doorway, in her pajamas, past her bedtime, and she looked at Maya with an expression I had not seen before. Not curiosity, not shyness. Something more deliberate. Like recognition. She said, "You carry the smell of people who are often sad, like my dad used to, before." I stood in the middle of my office, and did not say anything. Sophie crossed the room and sat down next to Maya, and picked up a paper, and pretended to read it, with the focused expression of someone who is, in fact, doing something else entirely. I looked at the two of them. My daughter, who sees things I have trained myself not to see, sitting next to a woman who had lost something I understood the weight of, and something in the room was different than it had been an hour ago, in a way I could not name. After Maya left, Sophie said, without opening her eyes, "Dad, do you remember what you smelled like before?" I did not answer. I kissed her forehead. I turned off the light. I went back downstairs. The chair still had the slight indentation of someone having sat in it for several hours. I looked at it for a moment, and the first hearing was on a Monday. I have been in courtrooms for 20 years. I know how they sound before they begin. By the end of the first hour, I was not entirely sure. I recognized the terrain. There is a particular stillness that comes over a judge's face when it is being convinced. Not the stillness of neutrality, the stillness of a conclusion forming. I saw it. For the first time in 20 years, I sat in a courtroom and felt the ground shift in a direction I had not prepared for. We worked through the night. Somewhere around 10 o'clock, Maya asked about Elena, not directly. She had found a letter from 2021. Julian had written that he thought about reaching out when I lost someone. He decided against it, because he thought I would prefer not to receive condolences from someone I was preparing to beat. In the Hargreaves case, she looked at me. Was he right? I thought about that. Yes, I said. Then she said, "What was she like?" Nobody had asked me that in 3 years. People said they were sorry. People offered things. People told me Sophie was lucky to have such a steady father. Nobody had asked me what Elena was like. I said, "She thought I was funny," which was unusual. "Most people find me difficult." Maya said, "I find you difficult." I know. She sounds like she was perceptive. Something shifted in the room. Not dramatically, but the quiet way that real things shift, like a door that has been slightly open for a long time. Moving 1 degree further, it was in the third letter that I found it. Julian had written about a contract dispute, nothing to do with the current case, and in the middle of a paragraph, about collateral obligations. Almost as an aside, he had written, "The standard interpretation of Section 4B has always seemed wrong to me. Everyone reads it backwards." I read it twice, then I pulled the mortgage documents, then the original deed of trust. Then I sat very still, for approximately 4 minutes, which is a long time. For me to sit still. He was right. The clause had been drafted to protect the borrower. Opposing counsel had been reading it backwards, or more precisely, had been counting on everyone else to continue reading it backwards, which was a reasonable bet, given that everyone had been doing so for 20 years. Julian had not been reading it backwards. Julian had left me the letter that contained this observation in a locked iron box, with instructions that only I should open it. Sophie appeared in the doorway at 11. She walked past me, sat down next to Maya, and said, without preamble, "Do you want to be here? Not because of the case. Just, do you want to be here?" Maya looked toward the hallway, toward where I was standing. which she could not see from the sofa, but seemed to know about anyway. She said, "Yes." One word, quietly, the way you say something when you mean it entirely, and do not need it to be larger than it is. I stood in the hallway, with the mortgage documents in my hand, and Julian's letter in my jacket pocket, and the knowledge that I had found a way to win, and I felt something I had not felt in a room in a very long time. Not happy, not relieved. Something quieter than both. Something that did not have a name. In the vocabulary I had been using for the last 3 years. The final hearing was on a Thursday. I stood up. I said, "Your Honor, I would like to draw the court's attention to Section 4(b) of the original lending agreement, and to the fact that it has been fundamentally misread by opposing counsel." Patricia Holt looked up from her papers. The judge looked at me. I placed the original deed of trust on the record. I cited the drafting history. I cited Julian's observation, the one he had written, almost as an aside, in a letter addressed to me, in a locked iron box, that he had left, with instructions that only I should open. The judge looked at the document, then at Patricia Holt, then back at the document. Vivone. Outside the courthouse. It was snowing. The light, tentative kind that falls in early winter, like it is not entirely sure. It has permission to be there. Maya stood next to me on the steps. Winning usually feels like a specific thing, a resolution of tension the body registers before the mind does. This did not feel like that. Maya said, "Julian was right about you. He said you were the best he had ever faced." He said it the way he said things he meant, quietly, and not to the person he meant them about. I said, "He never said anything like that to me." "No," Maya said, "he wouldn't have. That's not how either of you are." I drove home. I parked in the driveway and sat before going inside. In the outer pocket of my briefcase, the iron box, I took the last letter out. I had read it many times, but this time, I noticed something I had not seen before, not in the text itself. Below it, there was a faint impression in the paper, the kind left by a pen pressing through. From a page above, ghost letters that had not quite disappeared. When the page above was removed, I tilted the letter toward the window light. 4 words, "Written," and then crossed out, not erased, just struck through once, lightly, as if the person writing them had decided at the last moment that they were too much, or not enough, or simply belonged to the category of things that should not be said directly. The 4 words were, "You need this too." I sat with that for a long time. I want to tell you exactly how long, because I tell you everything exactly, but I did not check my watch. That is unusual for me. I went inside. Sophie was at the kitchen table, a drawing she had been revising for several days. She said, without looking up, "You won." "Yes. I knew you would." Then I looked at the refrigerator. The drawing was held up by a small blue house magnet. 3 people. A tall man with dark hair, slightly to the left of center. A small girl to his right. Hair drawn in loops, the way Sophie had drawn herself since she was 4. And to the left of the man, a woman. Dark hair, drawn carefully, holding a cup. Sophie said, without looking up, "I wanted to get the hair right. It took me a while." I said, "It looks right." She said, "I know." I went to my office. I looked at my phone, the way you look at something when you know what you are going to do, and are simply giving yourself one last interval of time before you do it. I called. She answered on the second ring. I said, "Sophie wants to know if you would like to have dinner with us Friday." A pause. "Not because of the case," I said. Another pause. Shorter. Maya said, "What time?" Julian knew something I didn't. He had looked at me across 47 case files and seen something I could not see in myself. A door that was still there, still functional, just closed, and had decided, in the quiet, deliberate way, that Julian decided things, to send someone to knock on it. Caleb did not know. He will not know. He will go on believing that Julian trusted him because he was competent, which is true, and that what happened afterward was simply what happens when people spend enough time in the same rooms during difficult things. He will not know that Julian Mercer, his rival for 12 years, had looked at him from across 47 case files and seen a door that was still there, still functional, just closed. Sophie's drawing is still on the refrigerator. I have not moved it. Friday is in 3 days. I have already decided what to cook, which is new, because I have not decided what to cook for anyone other than Sophie. In 3 years, I am not sure what to call what I am feeling. I have tried several words, and none of them fit exactly. Sophie would probably have a name for it. She usually does. Julian knew something I didn't. He saw something in me that I had given up on seeing in myself. Have you ever had someone do that for you? See something in you that you had given up on seeing yourself? I want to know, and if this story found you at the right moment, you already know what to do. Next week I have something for you that starts in a much quieter room than this, and ends somewhere that surprised even me.